folks, if I can have your attention, we'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting to order this morning for August 24th. I'm Kevin Jeffries, Chairman of the Planning Commission. And before we get started, I would like to, if you would, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you. And before we get started with our hearings this morning, I'd like to ask if you have a cell phone to please turn it off or turn it on vibrate so that it doesn't interfere with our cameras here in the courtroom. Okay, Commissioners, if you would, take a look at our minutes from our July 27th meeting. I'd like to get a motion on the floor to approve those, and then we can add or correct them if we need to. Okay, Mr. Hoffman? Okay. Have a second. Okay, Ms. Davis seconds. All right, now, is there any additions or corrections that we need to make to our July 27th Planning Commission meeting minutes? Mr. Faith.
On page 1, under down about the first part of the page, Commissioners William Douglas, Wendy Hagan, Thomas Elder, and Greg King, it says was absent. That should be were.
Okay.
And just the next paragraph down, it says County Attorney John Carter was also present. That should be also should be were, because it's a continuation of the names previous to that. And on page 3 of 5, last sentence, this is a continuation of the just a sentence above it. It says wood will not be used on the buildings. Now that references that does reference the word exterior above that, but I don't know if it's clear, so I'm not sure that the word exterior should not be put in. Wood will not be used on the exterior of the buildings. Just for clarification.
Okay. Either that to eliminate it because he's describing the materials in the sentence above.
Right. So just a clarification there. I don't know.
Just catch that sentence.
Okay. Is that okay with everybody on the commission?
Just a clarification there.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I have. Thank you.
The minor thing. The Mosley's name was spelled a couple different ways, a couple different places.
Again?
The Mosley's name was spelled a couple different. I'm not sure which is the correct one, but it's.
What page are you on?
It is page 3 of 5.
Okay.
First bullet point, it's spelled Mosley, and then there's a couple places where it's spelled on the next page, Mosley on the 5th bullet point.
Okay.
On another place it was spelled like that, so I'm not sure which one is correct.
We'll take a look at that and correct that. All right, any additional additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay. Seeing none, we'll do a voice vote on this. All those approve the minutes from our July 27th meeting with the changes and corrections signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Okay, our minutes have been approved. All right, before we get started with our dockets this morning, I'd like to get staff sworn in, if I could. Besides you.
solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Okay. With that, I guess we'll start with our public hearings, and we'll cite you if you'll read both dockets, please.
At PZ-21-015 and 016, application has been filed by Jericho Homes for the approval of a zoning map amendment on approximately 67.74 acres. The property is located at 1909 East Jericho Road and 419 Hoffman Lane, LaGrange. Changes from R2 residential and R4 residential to R2A residential. Just go ahead and read this.
Yes, please.
Application has been filed by Jericho Homes for the approval of a preliminary subdivision plan for 203 lots on approximately 67.74 acres. to be known as Parkside Estates. The property is located at 1909 East Jericho Road and 419 Hoffman Lane, LaGrange. The proposed zoning is R2A residential.
All right, thank you. And with that, Mr. McIntyre, you'll be introducing the docket. I just wanted to make sure on the it's not 203 lots now; it's 198.
That is correct. Once the applicants had initially applied for the 203 lots, and then after they have officially applied, they determined that based on the environmental study, they need to take away a couple lots, which is how they got down to 198.
If you want to proceed then with the introduction of the docket.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, my name is Tom McIntyre, Senior Planner, Oldham County Planning and Development Services. An application has been filed by Jericho Homes for the zoning map amendment and preliminary subdivision plan for 198 lots. The property is located on 1909 East Jericho Road and 419 Hoffman Lane. Changes from R2 and R4 to R2A residential. Here we have the aerial. The subject lots are encapsulated in red. Here we have the pavement and the structures. So you can see there's existing structures on the south side down here off Hoffman Lane. And here's the Jericho Road address. Here we have the zoning map. So you can see it is R2. The overwhelming majority is R2. R4 is up on the north side. And here we have our future land use map. This blue is outlined is for single family future subdivision. So again, our future land use map does project for future subdivision. Site history: on October 24th, 1984, a zoning map amendment from R2 to R4 for a nursing home facility was recommended for approval to the Oldham County Fiscal Court and was duly approved on November 20th, 1984. The County Board of Adjustments and Appeals additionally ruled that the removal and sale of topsoil from property in an agricultural district is not a permissible use. The board's final action upheld the determination of the Oldham County Planning and Zoning Administrator that the removal and sale of the topsoil is an industrial use. Case history: neighborhood meeting was held on July 15th. Technical review committee was held on July 21st. The APOs were mailed on the 11th of this month. The sign was posted 2 weeks ago today on the 10th. The public notice appeared in the ERA on the 12th. That is an existing pond, so the applicants are not proposing more or additional detention. They're just going to be using the existing pond as it stands today. Here we have open space. Again, on the left side in green is what the open space is. Again, the applicant is requesting a zoning change from R2, which is 52.18 acres, and R4, which is 15.56 acres, to R2A for the 198 lot single family subdivision on approximately 67.74 acres to be known as Parkside Estates. R2 allows for a maximum density of 3.63 dwelling units per acre, with a minimum lot size of 12,000 square feet and minimum lot width of 80 feet. R4 allows for a maximum density of 16 dwelling units per acre, with a minimum lot size of 6,000 square feet and minimum lot width of 50 feet. What the applicant is requesting to go to is R2A, which allows a maximum density of 5.81 dwelling units per acre, with a minimum lot size of 7,500 square feet and a minimum lot width of 50 feet. The proposed density in Parkside Estates is 2.92 dwelling units per acre. This proposal meets the R2A development regulations in addition to all other zoning and subdivision regulations. The minimum open space required per R2A development is 49,500 square feet, which is 1.13 acres. And the preliminary plan includes 9.48 acres of open space on the left and green, as you saw earlier. The plan outlines an existing pond to be used as detention, and the homes will be served by sanitary sewers. The applicant has stated in their justification that the plan provided applies the land use goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan. The property is located in Oldham County at large. However, the applicant intends to annex into the city of LaGrange. Per the submitted traffic assessment, no potential problems were identified. Therefore, no additional analysis is recommended and no mitigation is necessary to maintain roadway capacity as a result of this development. We have a picture of the posted sign out on Jericho Road. That was posted again on the 10th of this month. Here we are on Hoffman Lane looking south down towards, this is the intersection of Hoffman and Lakeview looking south. Here we continue south and we're about to take a left turn to go up to that property on the bottom side or the south side of the subject parcel. And here we're just going around the curve, and here's 419 Hoffman. Here we are going back towards Jericho Road on Hoffman Lane. Here we are at Duncan and Jericho. So again, we are looking towards LaGrange. Here we're looking across the street at Lesco Design and Manufacturing. We're looking at still in the same intersection of Duncan and Jericho. We're just looking to the east. Here we are continuing east down Jericho Road. Here we are looking south into the subject property. And you can see this gravel drive on the right. That is the 1909 East Jericho Road driveway. And it's the same road, just another picture. Here we are at 1909 East Jericho Road. Again, this is the property that sits over here in this area. Here we are at the Chili Witch Apartments at Jericho Road. You're looking on Jericho Road down towards LaGrange. We're looking into the apartments. And now east down Jericho Road at the LaGrange Church of Christ and Jericho Road. Proposed binding elements are the approval applies only to the plan presented at the August 24th, 2021 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing. There should be no subdivision of any lot into a greater number of lots without review by the Oldham County Planning Commission. The preliminary plan must comply with all established federal, state, and county ordinances and requirements at the time of the approval, and no record plat will be approved until all standards are satisfied. Lastly, the cumulative phasing plan shall limit the number of building permits to 29 per year, beginning with the first record plat. Mr. Chairman, if I may, the recommendation will be to, per your staff report, will be to the city of LaGrange. Again, Oldham County at large. However, the applicant does intend to annex into the city of LaGrange. That's why the recommendation is to the city of LaGrange and not fiscal court. Just to clarify that. And as we spoke earlier, if the annexation is not approved, they still have the opportunity to tie into the city services at just be at a higher rate when they tap into that. And then for the traffic study, the traffic study submitted was for 255 lots. And Mr. Summon, I'm sure will go into more detail about it, but this proposal is for 198. So because it's lesser and not more than 255, that's why we decided to move forward with it. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, we'll do that once we get Mr. Solomon and the school board and Michael up here. So, all righty, thank you, sir. Solomon, County Engineer. Right.
Right. So after our review of the preliminary subdivision plan that you're reviewing, our comments from the TRC review still apply. I believe you have those in your packet. Those were addressed typical issues, stormwater requirements in accordance with county ordinance and road design geometry. The plan does show the cluster mailbox that we discussed. That will require approval by the representative of the USPS for final plan approval. Tom mentioned the traffic study. We've been coordinating with the traffic engineer for the applicant and KYTC. There were some changes from the traffic study that's dated March 4th, 2020. One was a reduction in lots, and as Tom mentioned, that would lend to less need, I guess, for a turn lane. However, we were also looking at, and I say we, myself and the traffic cabinet, we're looking at the methodology for the traffic counts used on Jericho Road. And right now I'm just waiting for concurrence from KYTC that they're accepting of the methodology used. After talking with the applicant's engineer, really that I say shouldn't be a showstopper because from our standpoint, the cabinet will have to approve the permit onto Jericho Road anyway. So if they require any changes, that would be required subsequent to this hearing anyway. The only other comment I had was with regard to the sidewalk layout. Mr. Urban and myself have been discussing with some of the local utilities, LaGrange Utilities and Oldham County Water. The sidewalk shown in accordance with Oldham County subdivision regulations where it's 1 foot from the right-of-way. However, that could conflict with people have more than one car in their driveway. So we want to coordinate with those utilities to see if we can adjust that sidewalk location and then coordinate with the design engineer for the project to better locate that, maybe closer the street. But we need to work that out with utilities because their placement would also be affected by that sidewalk location. Those are my only comments.
Thank you, sir. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Sullivan, just for clarification, it does not affect the right-of-way width at all. So
Correct.
it doesn't affect the layout of any of the lots.
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, Oldham County School Board. Tell us about the numbers here. Full capacity. Michael Williams with the Oldham County School Board.
So the feeding schools or the serving schools would be Locust Grove, Oldham Middle, and Oldham County High School. You can see the overall capacity at this point on the form that I presented you today would be 102.68, but when you add in Summit Park, which also feeds into that same pattern, it would be 103.84, which then using the multiplier would mean that they would get 29 building permits.
Thank you, sir. All right, commissioners, before I open it up here for questions, I had just a couple things. Mr. Solomon, would you, if we come back up, just wanted to clarify that all of the concerns that you had outlined on your report, there was talk about detention basins needing to be identified, and I assume that's been done.
Well, that would be just completed during construction plan approval.
Okay.
I think it's been done completely, but that will be done.
Now, what about the cul-de-sac bulb width 39 feet? You said you couldn't find that on the proposed plan.
That is also yet to be done, but again, it's typical for construction plans. We can revise it then, update it.
Okay. All right, commissioners, questions for staff at this time? Any questions for staff? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move into the presentation by the applicant and all representatives and others in support of the application. And Mr. Baxter, as you know, you have 50 minutes to make that presentation, sir. And if you would, is there whoever's going to speak on the applicant's behalf, let's go ahead and get them sworn in.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have David Mendel of Mendel Scott present. Diane Zimmerman is also present. Anyway, these are representatives of the home. Just in case.
And we'll get their name and addresses for the record when they come up to testify.
Only swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
All right, Mr. Baxter.
Mr. Chairman, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Barry Baxter, 117 West Main Street here in LaGrange. I represent the applicant, Jago Homes, who is putting forth this plan. I think the first thing, and we do need to be clear about this, we have met with on a number of occasions representatives of the city of LaGrange, including the mayor, the public works, and also folks from LaGrange Utilities about the plan that we are presenting today. In fairness, the idea to annex came with our pre-application meeting from Mr. Urban. So I don't want to take credit for that. He's the one that suggested we approach the city, and we did. We have met with the mayor on a couple of occasions and talked about our plan. We have had a meeting with Public Works, and everyone is on board with us asking that this be annexed. I've also spoken with the city attorney, Beach Craigmile. I have a draft of the zoning map amendment ordinance and a draft of the development plan approval that I will provide to Mr. Craigmile. He is, I actually spoke with him last evening, and he is aware that we are here this morning and anticipates receiving that, assuming that the plan is approved and the recommendation for the zoning map amendment is made. We had a drawing that was done. This is actually something from my engineers, just to give you an idea about the current city limits of the city of LaGrange and the location of our property in relation to those city limits. So as you can see, the property already abuts the city of LaGrange on two sides. Tom showed you the planning map that indicated that this property was anticipated as a part of the comprehensive plan to be residential subdivision. This is an outline of our property. We butt up against 71 on one side. We have Duncan Avenue to what I would describe as the northwest. The point down there on the bottom left-hand corner is about a 15-foot wide strip that abuts Hoffman Lane. There will not be a vehicular access point there, although
we're having some technical
I look forward to
we're having some technical issues this morning, so our oil keeps going out up here on our All right, folks, sorry about that, and it might happen again. We're, like I say, having some technical issues here this morning, but we will proceed, and no, that's all right. We'll go ahead.
Okay, back where I was. So
Let me make it. We are officially back in session.
at this point that I was talking about, this is a access point to Hoffman Lane that will not provide for vehicular access. It'll be pedestrian only. There'll be a small path that accesses Hoffman, and there's the Wilburn Park is over in this area. So the idea is to allow the residents to be able to make their way to the park. So our site consists of 67.74 acres. As you could see from Tom's presentation, there are two parcels involved here. The current zoning is R2 and R4. If we were to develop the property as zoned, it would allow for approximately 126 houses and 240 apartments. The applicant is asking to rezone all of the property to downzone the R2, downzone the R4, upzone the R2 a little bit to R2A. Our plan calls for 198 single family residences. The minimum lot size shown on our plan is 7,560 square feet. That's just a tick more than what is allowed in the R2 zone. The minimum lot size in R2A is 7,500 square feet. Our resulting density would be 2.92 units per acre. The R2A allows for 5.81 units per acre. I would note that in the existing R2 zoning on the property, the allowable density is 3.63 units per acre, so we are still well under that. The current zone would allow for apartments to be constructed on property that is contiguous to the homes on Duncan Avenue. I received a phone call from a gentleman who lives on Duncan, and when I explained that was a possibility with the existing zoning, he said, well, I don't want that. So his name was Mr. Chapman, and he called me to talk about the plan. And that's the first I had heard from him. He didn't show up at any of our other meetings, and I don't believe he is present today. This is our proposed site. So you see, this is the Duncan Avenue area. In this location, there is a home at 1801 Jericho that faces Jericho Road. Here is the R4 zone that backs up to these houses along Duncan, and then R2 all through this area of our property. This was just a drawing that our engineer did just to show a layout that if we were to use the current zoning of this property, how we could have an apartment complex in this area and then single family residences in this location. That is not our plan. This is more in line with what we'd like to do with the property. So you see on this drawing, we've got this little area right here that shows the path to Hoffman Lane. Again, it is not a vehicular access. All traffic would come in from these two entrances on Jericho Road and circulate through our development. We have asked to be annexed into the city of LaGrange, which would provide for LaGrange utilities, would serve the premises with sewer and water. Emergency services would also be provided by the city of LaGrange. It's going to be a deed restricted community. And as I talked about, there's the walking path. This is a more detailed drawing of the number of lots, with the lots being numbered on the site that was prepared by our engineers. I'm going to have Mr. Mendel come forward, if you would, and just talk about the details of the plan a little bit. And don't forget to give your professional address.
Good morning. My name is David Mendel. Address is 5151 Jefferson Boulevard, Louisville, Kentucky, 40219. And as you see, what's been mentioned many times, our access will be off of Jericho. We'll have two access points off of Jericho Road, and they will, one will come in on the west side and kind of stay on the west side of the property, the other one on the east side, and they'll come together and they'll tie together back along I-71. One part is our open space is over on the west side of the property, and as I guess the R2A required 1.1 acre of open space, we have a little over 9 acres of open space, almost a 9 times increase than what's required. But we do have trees in that area that we will be saving behind those lots, because the trees will make those lots more desirable when you do save the trees. We do have the one existing lake that will be, we'll look at that as being a detention basin to eliminate any excess runoff. The goal will be that the peak storms for the pre-developed, the flows will be the same, will not exceed that for the post-developed. So we'll go ahead and do those calculations and get those to the city attorney for the city engineer for them to review and to approve the plans. Also, as was mentioned, the sidewalk, we do show the typical section on this plan that the sidewalk will not be 1 foot inside the right of way, but it'll be, the front of the sidewalk will be 3 feet behind the curb. So that'll give us 6 feet from the back of the sidewalk to the right of way line, which will provide more area, more length for cars so they do not block the sidewalk. We'll also have curb and gutters. We'll have underground utilities. The other thing, we'll be adding landscaping to this also. One other thing we did is you first come in on the western entrance, we did have like a mail kiosk. We did lose a lot for that, but we'll be able to have a little drive around. The detail is shown on the plan. So when people come in to pick up their mail, they will not be parking in the main road and the access for the main road people's coming in. So that way they can have all their mail picked up at one spot. We talked about the road going around the site, and we've also got one road that goes into the middle of the site with a small cul-de-sac, and so we believe that will be very attractive. We're trying to eliminate the amount of pavement because that eliminates storm runoff, and that's a plus there. The lots along I-71 will be a little bit deeper because of backing up to I-71. We wanted those lots to be a little bit deeper to give them more, as much as we could as a buffer along I-71. It was also mentioned on Hoffman Lane, We'll have a trail system that'll go to Hoffman. Here again, it will not be for vehicular access. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Let me ask you about two things. One is in this area, I believe we've got the existing residence that was depicted.
Yes, we'll be saving the existing house on that line. So we did modify the plan to save the house that's there.
When you modified the plan, I think you moved the roads around a little bit because of the way it was originally facing. It's kind of off.
That's correct.
All right. And then the other
To
thing,
provide the proper setbacks.
and the other thing is, we could talk about this area.
There is a stub that we're providing to the east property line that was mentioned. So we are providing that stub. We'll be building that stub. So as future properties develop, they'll be able to tie in to this road system. Not have to have additional accesses. We will work with the state highway department many times. We will have to work with them to prepare construction drawings showing how we'll tie in the grading. So we'll have to obtain their approval before we begin construction.
Thanks, sir.
Thing on the cul-de-sac was mentioned, we are going to have a 40-foot radius on our cul-de-sac to meet the standards.
And Mr. Chairman, at this time, I was going to get Ms. Zimmerman to come up and talk just quickly. You did a traffic study, and the traffic study is a little dated. And I know you had a conversation with the county engineer yesterday, maybe by text message, just talking about why you don't feel that that's a concern.
Good morning, Diane Zimmerman, 12803 High Meadows Pike, Prospect 40059. I did prepare the traffic impact study for a much larger development back in 2020, just prior to the pandemic hitting. The one issue that has been raised was the calculation of that daily traffic volume. And as explained in the document itself, the daily traffic was calculated by dividing the hourly traffic by the peak hour factor to come up with an estimate of the daily number. There was also an issue raised about once this gets annexed, would that mean that the speed limit could be lowered? And therefore, would that change the criteria for evaluating turn lanes? And the answer to all of that is that it takes less vehicles at 55 miles an hour to require a right turn lane. So if in the future the speed limit gets lowered, we are safely covered, let's say, by having the lower speed needs higher number of vehicles. So in everything that this is less houses and the possibility the speed could be going down, that reaffirms the fact that no turn lanes would be needed. And Mr. Suleiman and I discussed the fact that he had not had a response back from the Transportation Cabinet, and I reminded him that the Transportation Cabinet gets the final say. The light went up.
Okay. Let's take another 5-minute recess. Sorry.
Alrighty, folks, sorry about that again. We'll move forward, and as Jay says, talk fast. No. Baxter, continue, please.
Well, Ms. Zimmerman says she's done, so if you all have questions, she'll be here.
Okay.
But she thinks she concluded. This is some notes from your staff report that indicate that we are in conformance with comprehensive plan, the zoning ordinance, and it was just right there, the flood damage prevention ordinance. So as we talked about, this is Ms. Zimmerman's information about the traffic study. And just so that we are clear, after TRC, there was an email that was circulated between Mr. Silliman, the transportation cabinet, and Ms. Zimmerman about whether or not the traffic study needed to be updated. And I think there was a little bit of confusion about, she responded to that, and I don't think the gentleman from the transportation cabinet and Mr. Silliman necessarily either saw that or were on the same page about her response. But we talked about that late yesterday afternoon. And if there is a need to do any updating with regard to that before we submit construction plans, we have agreed to do that. And Mr. Silliman has agreed to work with us about whether or not that becomes something that's necessary. One other note here is our initial plan showed some access points onto Jericho Road for driveways. Those have been eliminated in the plan that we've got because that just would have added to the traffic burden on that road, and this is a better way to control the traffic on Jericho Road. This goes back to what Mr. Williams told you today about the number of permits that we can get. And these are just some samples. So Jago has a number of products that they offer with all kinds of different finishes and things. This gives you an example of a 2-car garage with a rather deep driveway. We had a conversation, a couple things we talked to the mayor about. One was the mayor was very concerned about getting into what he described as a Washington Manor situation. And I didn't know what a Washington Manor situation was when the mayor told me that. But I went over and looked, and the concern that was raised with Washington Manor is there's a lot of on-street parking that goes on, even though they're not supposed to be parking on the street. And as a result, it makes it difficult for cars to get through there. We understood that to be a concern, and we understood the mayor also had a concern about vehicles parking on the sidewalk. So the depth of the lots and the way that the houses will be situated allow for, with your 2-car garages, even if people have decided that their 2-car garage is going to be a storage facility as opposed to a 2-car garage, you still have room to park vehicles in the driveway that, number one, won't be on the road, and number two, will not be blocking the sidewalk. So that's a concern that was raised by the city, and we certainly understand that, and we will make sure that that is addressed. This is another type of home that Jago offers. Here's a 3-car version of something that they offer, which is available. And if there's an opportunity on the lot to be able to put something like this on there, this would be something they would be happy to build for people. The number is, these houses are going to be starting in the low mid threes. So, and I'll tell you all, I started this project a while back with them, and we started talking about the price points on these houses. And the price points when we first started talking were significantly lower than they are today. And that really doesn't have any function of more of the fact that the cost of the materials has gone up so much during the few months that we've been working on that. But they're going to be looking at the mid 300s to start on these houses. Same type of just a different look for another house that they construct. These are the binding elements that Tom outlined for you in the staff report. I've reviewed those with my client. We have no objection to any of these binding elements, and certainly expect them to be incorporated into a motion to approve the development plan. These are factors that I believe that support the zoning map amendment and the development plan. So we've got property that it has a mixed zoning of R2 and R4. we're going to have a uniform zoning of R2A. This is located in a natural area for future growth of the city of LaGrange and is contiguous to the city. And as Tom has described, it's already shown on the comprehensive plan map as property that is contemplated to be developed as a residential subdivision. We've got the development already on Duncan that is developed that we butt up against. And I did want to remind you all that there is a substantial buffer area. Part of that, in fairness, is topographic between our property and Duncan Avenue. And part of that is out of consideration so that those homes don't have our houses sticking right up in their backyards. We are going to ask that the property be annexed, and the comprehensive plan envisions the use of this property in this manner. And that concludes our presentation. We are certainly more than happy to answer any questions that you all may have. I'm here, Mr. Mendel. Folks from Jago are here, and Ms. Zimmerman, if you've got questions for me. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll open it up for questions here in just a little bit, but I'd like to ask, before we move into the testimony question opposing the application, is there anyone here that would like to speak in support of this application? Anyone here that would like to speak in support of? Okay. Seeing none, we will now open it up for testimony and questions by those opposing the application. And you will again have 50 minutes. So is there anyone that would like to come up and speak or give testimony in opposition to this application? Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. Just need to get your name and address for the record, and I'll get Ms. Highshoe to swear you in, please. Highshoe.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said we need to get you sworn in, so I'll ask Ms. Highshoe to get that done first.
Solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Yes, ma'am.
We just need a name and address for the record.
Orlean Oak, 101 Duncan Avenue, which is the house right on the corner of Jericho Road. I want some clarification on the traffic thing that you all say you all have done. Whoever, which is disagree with totally. You don't know what they're talking about. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, Mr. Solomon, if you would come up, the county engineer.
Well, as has been discussed, the traffic study was completed on March 4th, 2020. We had some questions regarding, again, the methodology of the traffic counts on Jericho Road, which Ms. Zimmerman explained the methodology. We're just awaiting concurrence from KYTC that they agree with that. There was a comment about the lesser number of lots, which again lends to the lesser need. And also we had brought up that does there need to be consideration with the speed limit potentially being lowered if this is annexed into the city. It's only 55, it would likely be 35 if annexed. The cabinet and Ms. Zimmerman and myself, we discussed that, and really at the time she has to do her study based on the current conditions. However, at the lower speed, it would again lend to the lesser need for turn lanes. So we concur with that. Again, all we're awaiting right now is concurrence from KYTC about the methodology for the counts.
Okay.
The speed limit is 35. It is not 50. It's 35. I've lived there for 52 years. I know the speed limit. The traffic there is terrible already. You can sit there, take you 5, sometimes 10 minutes, it's according what time of day, to get out off Duncan Avenue onto Jericho Road. So the state needs to do a study of the traffic on that road. I mean, I'm not against this subdivision being put in there. They have met everything that we have fussed about and made it right. It's not that, but I mean, the traffic on Jericho Road is just absolutely terrible. Need to do a study on it and make some adjustments to it. Evidently, he don't know Jericho Road. He hasn't lived out there. He knows the Jericho Road.
Okay.
That's all I have to say. I just want something done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I actually did used to live on Hoffman Lane for several years. I've lived in Oldham County for about 16. The study was completed. I think any other measures that would be required of Jericho Road, we would have to address with the state, and we'll concur with that.
Mr. Urban?
The study was done in March of 2020, and I believe that was before the initial quarantining of everybody, kind of the lockdown, correct? I think that was mostly in April. I mean, it
Should have been
started,
at that time, yes,
but the traffic counts would have been probably at the best
to that.
at the I'll call it more true traffic counts than we might see today, because people are working from home today. So, yep. I'm hearing you concur with that. I guess I'm making a statement. But
That's correct. March would have been earlier than, I believe, late March, early April was when quarantine and lockdown started and would really affect the traffic. I was just trying to check my notes with regard to the speed limit. I based my statements on, I believe, looking at where the speed limit sign was located on Jericho Road.
Ms. Zimmerman, do you have dates of the traffic counts that were performed?
Yes, the counts were made on February the 12th, 2020. I happen to know this report was finished before the lockdown because I went on vacation the next day, and the lockdown happened while we were on vacation. So a very clear memory that this was all done and completed prior to the first case in Kentucky was diagnosed March 6th.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, any additional testimony or questions on this application as far as the opposing the application? Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we will move into the questioning of the applicant, those opposing the application by the commission. Commissioners, we have 30 minutes. Do we have any questions for you, the applicant, or that testified here? Yes, sir. Mr. Douglas.
I'm not sure if the applicant can answer this or our county engineer. Has there been any studies yet or appearance of the detention or the existing pond to handle the detention basin runoff water from the curb and gutter? I'm sure. Are you going to connect the curb and gutter flow into that existing pond?
Mr. Mendel?
I guess that's my question.
Normally, those are done during the construction drawing preparation, but we will do a field topo. And then as far as the storm water coming into the detention basin, it'll be carried in with a number of catch basins that will collect the water every so often so that the water doesn't spread into the driving surface. But we'll have catch basins that'll be, the plans will be submitted to Mr. Sullivan to be reviewed. And then we can modify that basin. We might need to modify the lake to make it a little bit bigger, make it a little bit larger. But we can modify that in the construction drawing phase.
You have to get a permit from Division of Water to do that?
The permits from the local here, but as far as going to the Corps of Engineers, we've looked at that lake, and Ron Thomas has been out and looked at the stream, so we'll have to meet everything with the federal guidelines for the Corps of Engineers.
Anything you want to add to that?
As Mr. Mendel said, typically the detail that's required for the detention basin calculations wouldn't be done at this stage because it is very comprehensive. So we'll review that when he submits it at that time. And if modifications are required to the existing pond, or if an additional basin is required to meet our requirements, I'm sure they'll add that. We'll coordinate with that. And with regard to, he mentioned the name Ron Thomas. Ron Thomas is with RES, which is a local ecological service company that would review the.
But all our crossings road will have to meet the requirements for the Corps of Engineers.
Excuse me, who would maintain that lake or the detention basin? Because
Is your mic on?
yes,
Okay.
record plat, we would require the developer to enter into a stormwater maintenance agreement, which at some point would then transfer over to HOA. And there will, as I think you're aware with the stormwater involvement, there will be some coordination with the county on larger maintenance items, large structures to that, but the maintenance of the base or the pond itself would be the HOA in the long term.
The HOA will be maintaining the open space and maintaining the landscaping too.
I'm sure you'll go over with them some of the experiences that other subdivisions has had with utilizing ponds.
Go homes, they've been building homes. I think this is a third generation of building homes in a number of communities in this state. So they're well aware of quality and the upkeep and their reputation. They do have a good reputation.
Mr. Solomon, if you would, let's get that on the record. I know you were nodding yes, but just to his question.
And the question was
With the applicant of issues that other developers have had with utilizing existing ponds for detention basin to ensure that their upkeep.
And that would come at our construction review stage, where if we identify known issues, we'll coordinate with Del Scott to correct them if necessary.
Okay, before I ask any other questions, I have a question. I guess Mr. Baxter, I don't know whether you want to address this or Mr. Scott, but the Range Public Works had a comment about sidewalks, that they would like to see that tied in between the entrances along Jericho Road, and that there be consideration of a sidewalk to extend from the side entrance and tie into the existing sidewalk at Duncan Avenue. It would be the benefit of public access all the way to the center of town from the development.
They have indicated, Mr. Chairman, that they are going to require that. Representatives of Jago have spoken to Public Works and also to those assembled whose property it will go across. She actually would like the city to build the sidewalk, and we don't have opposition to that. I mean, we're more than happy to pay for that if that's how the city wants to do that. But we understand that is one of the requirements of the development, and we have no objection to that.
You would accept that as a binding element?
Absolutely.
All right. Commissioners, any other questions? Yes, sir, Sam.
Chairman, they mentioned the lots backing up 71 were a little deeper as far as considering the noise. I can't tell how much deeper they are. This latest plat is. I know there's going to be significant noise back there.
Lots are about 120 feet deep, but there are some that's a little bit deeper. Up along I-71, they'll be 150 foot deep. Those lots will be. So it's going to be about 25% deeper.
All right. Any additional questions? Now, Mr. Finney.
I have a question for Mr. Williams. Mr. Zimmerman.
Sir,
How many students will this think will generate on average?
on my form. So based on the original 203, the student impact growth would be 97. So take away about 2 of that, 3 of that, since they knocked it down by 5. So, I mean, you're looking at
2 students a day?
Well, I mean, 92 K through 12 students, anywhere from 92 to 95 K through 12 students will come out of this subdivision.
Okay, and those, and figure 75% of those will be bused probably.
Right. Honestly, right now our bus riding rate is down. So, I mean, you've got more parents driving their kids,
Okay.
And we're shortening routes. We're going short run. We're looking at potentially going short run, which means that we would pick kids up at the head of the subdivision. They would have to walk to the main bus stop at the front of the subdivision.
Okay. Do you have an idea of what the route would be from the subdivision to the school?
I do not. That is not my area of expertise. I leave that to our transportation department.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Any additional questions?
Ms. Zimmerman, I have a question for Ms. Zimmerman.
Go ahead.
First of all, do you know what was generally the number of trips generated per day out of this subdivision?
Almost all subdivisions generate approximately 10 trips per unit over the course of a day.
Okay.
It's like 9.6 or something, but nice round math, 10.
Okay. Are you familiar with the routes out of the subdivision to get to the interstate?
Yes.
Would you describe those routes from this area, maybe not even particularly this subdivision, because I have really no problem with this subdivision, to Interstate 71?
What do you mean by that?
Well, are the routes to the interstate simple, easy?
Defined by what? I mean, if you live by the interstate, it's easy.
If you're taking Jericho Road to 53, is that a simple, smooth route to 71? Would you call it a simple, smooth route?
Call it unsmooth. I mean, I'm not really sure.
Okay, I can't testify, so I'm not going to say how it is. But have you driven that route?
Yes.
Okay, when you get to LaGrange, what do you have?
A lot of stuff.
And also what?
Road
Railroad track. And also what?
What you're asking.
A very congested, narrow road down the middle of a railroad track.
Finney, just be careful about testifying, sir.
Damn, but I have somebody that won't answer a question. Is there a real simple, easy way to move 2,000 cars a day to 71?
I think you're assuming everyone is going to 71, and we just talked about 92 children going to a school, so they are not going to I-71. They might be going south of I-71, but I'm not sure what the purpose of these questions are for me to be able to give you an answer. I can't figure out where we're going.
Point being is that it's a difficult subdivision to move people from.
Mr. Finney, don't testify, please, sir.
And isn't that a better question for the county engineer?
Again?
It'd be a question for the county engineer.
You're the transportation highway person.
I was hired by the developer to do an analysis of their instances to meet the code in Oldham.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Douglas.
Let me see if I can get this picked up on the mic. Just to follow up on the lady that came up about the traffic study from the subdivision, I guess she lives next door. This could either be answered by the staff or either by the applicant, maybe Mr. Baxter. We're relying on the turning lane if the state approves the existing traffic study. Is that correct?
Completely following your question, relying on the conclusion that a turning lane is not necessary?
Correct. Based on the reduction, if the annexation of LaGrange, City of LaGrange And the reduction of the speed limit, is that correct? No. She's answered that. Okay. You answered it. Thanks.
Hold on a minute. I didn't catch that last part. You said Ms. Zimmerman was nodding her head. We need to get that on the record.
Ms. Zimmerman?
Traffic study was conducted for 255 lots at 55 miles an hour, and no turn lanes are required under those conditions. So we are now less units and perhaps a lower speed limit. So both of those conditions together would make a turn lane less required than under the conditions studied. No,
The speed limit does not go down. It stays at 55. It's still not required.
All right. Any additional questions for the applicant or the folks that testified in opposition? Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into the next portion of the hearing, which is the rebuttal evidence and cross-examination by the applicant. Mr. Baxter.
Anything additional, Mr. Chairman?
Okay. All right, we'll move into then rebuttal evidence and cross-examination by the opposition. Anything that you'd like to say, Ms. Smoke? Okay. Come on forward, please.
I know there's progress in this county, and it's going to be. We're going to get something. But that road is 35 miles an hour, and hardly anybody observes that. It's only 2 lanes. Like I said, I've lived there on that corner for 52 years. Like this gentleman asked that lady, couldn't answer his question. You got a 2-lane road that leads up to the railroad track. And half the time you have to stop there because there's a train going through town. So if you take any of the side streets, they're all, as any of you all know around here, they're not very wide. They've been there for ever since I've lived in this county. Just like I said, 56 years. So yes, there needs to be something done about at least Jericho Road. If those many cars and the extra buses going to be out there on that road. People like myself trying to get out of our subdivision with all the, it's most of the time now it's hard because if they come down that hill, Jericho Road, if you know the area, they come down that hill and then it's a little bit of a rise where you can't actually see cars coming down Jericho Road when we're trying to get out of our street. So I just want another study done and some change and possibly some changes done for there. And like I said, the speed limit is 35 miles an hour, and you cannot lower it any lower than that I'm aware of. So I just want those issues cleared up. Like I said, I don't really have anything wrong. They have answered all my questions and to my satisfaction about what they're going to do with the subdivision. It's not that, but I do want the traffic study done so that there can be some changes in the future.
And before you leave, do you have a final statement you'd like to make? That's the next portion of the hearing. And
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
Statement. I mean, what you were just saying was kind of rebuttal, whatever. And so we have in the hearing a final statement. And so you're welcome to make a final statement if you would like to for the record.
As far as I'm concerned, this was just my final statement.
Okay, just want to give you the opportunity. So, thank you. Mr. Baxter, final statement of the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard the testimony today in support of our requested development plan and the zoning map amendment. You heard testimony from our traffic engineer regarding the situation out there. That study that was done by Ms. Zimmerman was reviewed by the county and also by the state, and those basically based upon the fact that we had a larger number of units that has been reduced. At this point, it did not appear that we needed to update that study. Further, Mr. Silliman came and testified that he has reached out to the Department of Transportation and asked for their input into whether or not they think anything else needs to be done. This is a state highway. It is not a county road. It is not a city road. So it is entirely up to the Transportation Cabinet as to what will occur as it relates to Jericho Road. We have complied with all the regulations according to your own staff, indicating that we have done the work necessary to get in a position to request and be granted approval and a recommendation for the zoning map amendment. And we would respectfully ask that you approve our development plan and that you recommend that the city of LaGrange adopt the zoning map amendment. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Baxter, let me ask one additional thing of the applicant, if I could. Would you all consider putting in, if the State Highway Transportation Cabinet allowed it, a right turn lane at both entrances?
Well, I don't think that it's warranted, and I don't think they're going to recommend that. We've had this come up. If they tell us to do it, obviously we have to do it. We've had this come up as you're aware, Mr. Chairman, on a number of developments where people come in and they say that we want a turn lane, and the highway department looks at it and they say, you may want a turn lane, but we're not going to require you to do it, or we don't think it's necessary, or we're not going to approve it. So if they tell us after they review the information that is submitted, they review construction plans, that we need to do a turn lane, then obviously that's something that we would have to do. But I think it's entirely up to them as to whether or not turn lanes are something that we're going to have to do.
So you all, what you're testifying to is that if the State Transportation Cabinet request turn lanes, you all would be in agreement to put those in?
I think we would have a choice. I mean, they're not going to approve our entrances if we don't do a turn. If they tell us we have to have turn lanes, they're not going to approve the entrances at that point.
And would you be willing to accept that as a binding element based upon?
We'll follow the recommendations of the Transportation Cabinet. Absolutely, yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, the application on or both applications on docket PZ 21015, which is the zoning map amendment request, which will go to the city of LaGrange if they do annex this property. If not, then it would go to fiscal court for their consideration. The second docket is the PZ 21016, and that is the preliminary subdivision plan. So at this point, these dockets are now closed, and I will call on Mr. Urban to outline the zoning map amendment request, and that's what we'll vote on first.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hampton.
I didn't know we were ready to close that yet. I have a question. I still have a question.
Okay, we can do that. All right, go ahead.
I just can't understand why there's a confusion. It's either 55 miles an hour or it's 35 miles an hour. There's a big difference there. One side is saying it's 55, one is saying it's 35. It's important.
Mr. Stillman, if I may interject here, can you approach, please? Is it possible that you can confirm that the 35 mile per hour zone ends at the city limits, but that the subject property is on a 55?
I'm going to read one of the emails that I sent to Ms. Zimmerman. The study is correct in stating that the speed limit is 55 miles per hour on Jericho Road at the proposed entrances. The 35 mile an hour zone appears to end at the city limits, which is the west boundary of the proposed development. If the city intends to annex this, I'm assuming the speed limit would then be 35 miles across the frontage of the property. That was the question asking to consider this. As Ms. Zimmerman has stated, the study was done at 55, so it was actually done at the, call it the worst case scenario, even though my inspection had revealed that, my inspection revealed the same, sorry, and I was just questioning if it would change. I think the woman who came up and spoke, I forgot her name, her concern is that traffic may be traveling faster than that. We know that people travel faster than the posted speed limit. What we're basing this on, my statement and traffic studies based on, is posted speed limits.
Thank you. Mrs. Zimmerman, do you have anything to add to that?
I'm just going to ask Tom or Amy if there's a way to show you Google Street View clearly shows the end of the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit sign in front of the house that fronts on Duncan or Jericho Road, that 1801, whichever house that is.
See if we can get this.
Oh, cool. Which confirms what Mr. Silliman was just saying, that the speed limit changes at the western boundary.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Mr. Hampton, does that answer your question, sir? Okay. All right. With that, I'll now ask Mr. Urban if he'll outline the docket PZ 21015, which is the request for a zoning map amendment.
First thing is a recommendation to the city of LaGrange because of the anticipated annexation into the city, whether to approve or deny the zoning map amendment request. On page 3, you have sample motions for each of those. I think that you need to make sure and include justification in your recommendation as to what your recommendation might be, either again approval or denial. If you are choosing to recommend approval, you can include the applicant has included in their application a justification for the zoning map amendment or testimony that you've heard at today's hearing.
All right. Pardon, anything you need to add, sir? Okay. All right, commissioners. At this point, we will open it up for a motion on the docket PC 21015, which is a request for a zoning map amendment. This would go to the city of LaGrange if they annex the property. If it doesn't get annexed into the city of LaGrange, then it would go as a recommendation to Oldham County Fiscal Court. So at this time, the chair would entertain a motion on the zoning map amendment request. Mr. King?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move for approval of or recommendation of approval of the zoning map amendment as requested. Based on testimony and evidence presented, I find that it is in conformance with subdivision regulations and the comprehensive plan as noted in the staff report. Based on applicant's submission, I adopt the language that cites objective LU1-3 and go LU-2 in conformity with the comprehensive plan. I also find that the plan is presented as in conformity with the future land use map and is generally consistent with the adjoining area. Finally, I will note that the proposal involves about 168 fewer housing units as proposed than it would under existing zoning, and I find that favorable. Of course, the binding elements and conditions of approval are part of it.
That'll come later.
That's it.
Okay. Mr. Carter, is that adequate motion, sir? No, that'll. We're just doing the zoning map amendment request. So is that an adequate motion? Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the zoning map amendment request that will go, as I said, to either city of LaGrange if it's annexed or to Oldham County Fiscal Court. Ms. Davis. Okay, Ms. Davis seconds. All right, any discussion now on the motion for the zoning map amendment request? Any questions? Seeing none, call on Ms. Hychu to take the vote. And this is a motion to approve the zoning map amendment request for recommendation to the city of LaGrange.
Ms. Jones? Mr. Smith? Ms. Nasser?
Yes.
Mr. Hampton? Mr. Halfling? Finney?
Yes.
Mr. Elder?
Yes.
Mr. Douglas? Ms. Davis?
All right, the docket PZ 21015, which is the zoning map amendment request, It has been approved on a vote of 10-0. All right, now we'll consider docket PC 21016, which is the preliminary subdivision plan. As always, I'll ask Mr. Urban if he would outline what's being requested and also the proposed binding elements.
On page 3, again, there are motions to either approve or deny the preliminary subdivision plan. On the page 4 are proposed binding elements. There are going to be 2 additional ones. What I am going to say before I mention the binding elements, I think that the applicant is working towards resolving the issue of the road cross section, so I don't want to put that as a binding element. We've talked with the utilities about trying to make sure the cars don't overhang the sidewalk. They're working in that direction. So the first one is the approval applies only to the plan presented at the August 24, 2021 Oldham County Planning Commission public hearing. Number 2 is there shall be no subdivision of any lot into a greater number of lots without review by the Oldham County Planning Commission. Number 3, the preliminary plan must comply with all established federal, state, and county ordinances and requirements at the time of approval, and no record plat will be approved until all standards are satisfied. Number 4 is the cumulative phasing plan shall limit the number of building permits issued to 29 per year, beginning with the first record plat. Number 5 is that the applicant shall complete the sidewalk across Jericho Road frontage to Duncan Avenue, clarifying whether that's either they're doing it or the city of LaGrange does it and the applicant pays for it, as Mr. Baxter had suggested. Then turn lanes, number 6 is turn lanes shall be constructed and paved if required by the Kentucky Transportation Capital. Okay, thank you, sir. With that, the chair will now entertain a motion on docket PC 21016, which is the Jericho Homes approval of a preliminary subdivision plan for 198 lots. Yes, sir, Mr. Key.
Mr. Chairman, once again, I'll move a recommendation of approval, approval of the preliminary plan based on testimony and evidence presented. I found it in conformance with the subdivision regulations and comprehensive plan, including those objectives and goals set forth in applicant's submit. Find the proposal in conformity with the future land use map, consistent with the general area. And again, I find that the proposal representing a possible reduction of 168 housing units on this piece of property to be favorable to the alternative. I would like to include the binding elements.
168, it would be 198.
198, excuse me. Supposed to be good numbers.
I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Adopted.
Okay. Mr. Carter, is that adequate, sir? Okay. We have a motion on the floor to approve the preliminary subdivision plan with the attached binding elements. We have a second. Okay. Davis seconds. All right. Commissioners, any discussion on the motion to approve the preliminary subdivision plan? Any discussion? Okay, seeing no one, we will proceed to vote on this docket PZ 21016, which is the request for preliminary subdivision plan approval. Side you, if you would, let's take the vote.
Ms. Davis? Mr. Douglas? Mr. Elder? Mr. Finney?
I think this creates a nightmare for people getting out of this thing in the city of LaGrange, traffic-wise. I believe the subdivision's great. I really do. I'll approve it, yes.
Mr. Halfling? Mr. Hampton? Mr. King? Nasser? Mr. Smith? Ms. Jones?
All right, motion to approve preliminary subdivision plan with the attached binding elements on docket PZ 21016 has been approved on a vote of 10-0. And with that, before we leave today, or wrap up our hearing, our meeting, just wanted to see if we've got anything scheduled for next month. Looks like
filing deadline is tomorrow. I do anticipate that we will have at least 2 dockets next month. And also just a reminder, the study review committee meeting that was scheduled for this Thursday has been canceled. Most likely we're anticipating that we will have 2 in September to try and move forward the school capacity ordinance information and possibly solar panels. So again, Thursday night meeting has been canceled and we will have a planning commission next month.
all right. Mr. Irvin, anything else to add? All right. Thank you all. We're done at about 10:30, so appreciate everybody coming out today. Stay healthy. We stand adjourned.